is Randy Niemeyer, and I was told I can't tell any jokes, so I'm going to just move forward. And he is running for 7th District in Lake County for the County Council. So we're going to let Randy introduce himself. So here you go.
Thanks, Jessica. The joke was that when she asked me how I wanted to be introduced, I said, how about an introduction with some music, lights, fireworks that you would see the nature boy Ric Flair come out to. I thought that would be a terrific introduction, but no, you did a great job. Thank you for that. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I'm Randy Niemeyer, and I'm a Republican. Is anybody else here a Republican? I'm from Cedar Lake, not too far from here. I grew up in this area of Lake County. I actually served 10 years here at the Lake County Fair running cattle shows in this building as the open class dairy show superintendent. Also 7 years on the Lake County Ag Society Board of Directors who runs the Lake County Fair. So this is a pretty familiar building to me and a place that means a lot to me. So I'm glad to have it here. It's always difficult to follow Jennifer Ruth Green in anything. Even at my own event in December, I had her speak after me because she's a hard act to follow, and she wears her conservative values on her sleeve, and I've been on Team Green from the start, publicly endorsed her, and will support her to the end. Today, what I really wanted to talk about was not as much about an elevator speech in politics, but it's about why we as Republicans need to be motivated in this primary season. So growing up in Cedar Lake, people look at Cedar Lake now as a Republican community. It wasn't always that way. Cedar Lake was incorporated in 1967, and from 1967 until the turn of the century in 2000, it was a Democrat majority-run community. So was Lowell, so was St. John. South Lake County here was just like North Lake County, a part of the machine. And it took a group of courageous Republicans to sign up for office and to run to make a difference that decided that they were going to start changing these communities. Cedar Lake now enjoys on a 7-member council, 7 Republicans and 0 Democrats. We have, thank you. We have a Republican clerk treasurer. We have a very strong local organization. And I was inspired as a young man watching my great uncle Ernie campaign in 1982 when he was a state senator. I had an opportunity to ride in an old car with great uncle Ernie and my grandfather, his brother Adolph, during the Lowell Labor Day parade. And I was so fascinated watching so many people light up when they saw this man. And he knew them by their first name, and they appreciated his Republican values and principles. And so that was the first inspiration I had to become a part of this movement, and I've never apologized and never will apologize for being a conservative. Some of the things that I hope to do here in Lake County as a 7th District representative, there's currently a Republican in that seat. And I chose to primary this Republican because I feel that the voice of conservatism is not being heard in Lake County. It is a rubber stamp for the machine here to continue to operate without impediment. Currently, the Lake County Council is made up of 7 members. 5 are Democrats, 2 are Republicans. But you wouldn't know it because nothing ever gets blocked going through. There's no questions asked. There's no accountability. I am not going to be the person who is an impediment to progress. I won't simply be a stick in the mud to be a stick in the mud. But I can tell you when there needs to be a first and a second, a motion made and a second on an item to hold people accountable. One of the great things about Robert's Rules of Order is that by making that first and second, you force a debate, you force dialogue, and it's what we need here in Lake County to start changing that culture. I believe what we see in governments like Lake County, you hear things around the state really, oh, it's Lake County, it's always that way, right? We're just kind of the punchline to a joke. And I'm tired of that. And the other Republicans that are running in the 4th District, which is currently a Republican-held seat, feel the same way that I do, that we need to be able to work with one another to help change this culture, because like Cedar Lake, like St. John, like Lowell, like a lot of these South County communities who used to be Democratic, by 2030 in the next census, we have an opportunity in Lake County to actually turn this thing red.
Yeah. Woo!
But we don't do that unless we take a stand right now and we recognize as Republicans that we can't sit at home during the primary. You have Jennifer Ruth Green and a list of other people running in the Republican primary. It's important that you go out and vote. In the last primary election in 2018 for the seat that I'm running for, there was only 4,600 votes cast. And the current office holder won by 2 votes.
Yeah.
So you get what you ask for if you stay at home. You get a lot of crummy government. So I'm hoping that all of you will come out and support your Republican candidates. Don't apologize for being a conservative, because this movement is catching on.
Yeah, it is. Woo!
I wear this University of Alabama shirt because my daughter attends college there, and Alabama's a good conservative state. But surprisingly, when I went for orientation, I had the opportunity to learn about equity. And it was impressive. It was so impressive. I got up and walked out, myself and a lot of other parents. I didn't need somebody telling me that I was holding someone else back or that I was a racist. That was really kind of funny to me. But my daughter is a part of a sorority, and all these sororities there have to meet certain equity standards. This is even in a conservative state. And she asked me early on, she goes, "Dad, what do I do when I'm confronted with some of these conversations?" And I said, well, let's keep this real simple. How did you get to the University of Alabama? She said, well, I earned some scholarships. She earned $96,000 in scholarships. I said, how did you do that? She said, I started working in kindergarten at this. I said, okay. So should you give away some of what you earned? She goes, no. I said, well, you're a Republican. Just be proud of it. You want to keep what you earn. So to tell you a little bit about who I am, my service in government, I've been on the Cedar Lake Town Council for 12 years. It's my 12th year, 10 years as the council president. Cedar Lake has changed a great deal in that time. I remember growing up in Cedar Lake that those of us from the west side, we didn't go to the east side. You know, that was where all the bad stuff happened. And the people from the east side didn't talk to us from the west side. But now Cedar Lake's a totally different community. Some of the things I'm proudest of in the time I've spent in office is the infrastructure projects we've completed. This was long before ARPA ever happened. We did this stuff every year, and we managed to actually shrink tax rates while we were investing in the community. I look to take some of that experience onto the Lake County Council. Right now, the Lake County has about a $300 million budget. This year, there's finally some investment in some infrastructure that might make a difference in people's lives, but I think this is something we should be doing every year. There's opportunities to leverage your local dollars all the time by responsible budgeting, not wasting taxpayer money, not having positions in departments that are budgeted for and never filled, right? We should be investing those dollars either in infrastructure projects that help to support the economy of Lake County, or we should be giving it back to the taxpayers. So over the last 5 years in Cedar Lake, there's been a lot of growth, and in 2017, our local tax rate was 81 cents per $100. This year, our adopted tax rate was 56 cents per $100. So we've been able to do all of these things that we do, grow our police department. Since I started in 2011, we went from 14 officers to 25 officers. In 2013, we merged the volunteer fire department into the town and created a municipal fire department. And we now have 14 full-time firefighters and rescue personnel. So it can be done without burdening the taxpayers any more than what they already are. We know that inflation is impacting everyone. And as a government leader, it is our job to make sure that we take care of what's essential and nothing more than that. So those are some of the goals that I have in my service, hopefully on the Lake County Council. Is number one is we need to create a culture of accountability. We need no more of this where the council is suing the commissioners to gain more power for government.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to be working together, Republicans and Democrats, on the council and commissioners to invest in the essential services and the essential infrastructure that supports Lake County. And like Jennifer Ruth Green said, let's just do the things that others can't necessarily do for themselves. It doesn't mean that we legislate every exception. It doesn't mean that we have to create new laws for everything or new spending plans for everything. It's simply stepping back for a second, getting back to the simplicity of government. And I have three main things I'm running on is restore your voice. A government without transparency is a government that doesn't hear what the people have to say because the people don't know what their government's doing. Restore integrity. We have to remember that we work for the people. I am someone that people in Cedar Lake know as being very accessible. My cell phone number has been posted on the Cedar Lake town website for years, and people don't abuse it. And some of the calls that I get are from people that would never vote for me, but they know that when they call me, I'll respond and I'll work, I'll do the best I can to solve their problem. And the third thing is realize our potential. Lake County is an economic powerhouse waiting to explode, and we just need to get out of our own way for just a little while and act like grown-ups and professionals, and we can start to attract that economy. We have a lot of people moving from Illinois, and I want to see the businesses come with it. The talent is here, the opportunity is here, the infrastructure is here. Now we need to have professionals and conservatives in government that help to support that foundation. So with that, Jessica, are there any questions?
Yes. Okay. We have 3 questions. Question number 1, are you a Trump supporter?
The answer to that is absolutely. You know, the thing I really liked about President Trump, he wasn't a policy wonk. He wasn't one of these guys that came up and gave great speeches about all of these different academic style policy initiatives. He spoke from the heart, shot from the hip, and he told you the truth.
Right on.
You know, one of the things that really I saw in President Trump, and I actually pulled this up, I was thinking about it today, was the speech from over 100 years ago by Teddy Roosevelt called "The Man in the Arena." I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I'll take just a minute to read that speech. It's very short. This is something that's always inspired me in my life, is the man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So that's over 100 years ago that Teddy Roosevelt gave that speech, and President Trump lived that mantra during his presidency. He made a big difference for us.
All right, question number 2. Do you know what kind of voting machines we have in Lake County?
I don't know the exact brand of machines, but I have been involved in elections. I've been a Republican precinct committeeman for 14 years. And I have to say, for the most part, I've taken part in recounts. I've been a witness to them. And I've watched how the process works. And one of the things that Lake County has done pretty well, for the most part, is elections. There have been a few minor hiccups here and there. But being someone that's been intimately involved in it, I have a good deal of confidence in the systems that we use. I've hired lots of poll workers over the years, and the training is good. There's always ways to improve. But I agree with what Barb said, though. A simple system, punch in a card, right? I mean, you had the hanging chads back in the early 2000s, and that was kind of an anomaly, but simple systems work in elections, systems that people can have faith in. And so I agree with Barb on that, but I do think that Lake County has a pretty solid election system, and I haven't seen things that I would call abnormalities. Others may have, but in the recount that I took part in just a few years ago locally, it was a 3-vote difference, and the 3 votes stood. It was a solid count, so hopefully it keeps up, but Lake County has done that fairly well.
All right, last question. You also get the transgender sports question.
Well, I was raised to follow the science, right? The science says there's an XX and an XY chromosomes. It's funny to hear all of the debate about this from progressives, and they're the same people that during COVID said, you gotta follow the science, right? So let's just follow the science on this. This is really ridiculous. I was there when both of my kids were born, and I could tell what they were. And I wasn't a biologist. I own a trucking company, so I've inhaled a lot of diesel fumes over the years, so yeah, it was amazing to watch Ketanji Brown Jackson not be able to answer that question, and I laughed out loud when I saw that. I said, you don't know what a woman is? Not a biologist? Well, it wasn't a hard question, but well, Dr. Fauci taught us that he is science, and kind of off the subject, another thing in Cedar Lake that was kind of funny during the pandemic, since we're such Republican rebels, when the mandates were coming down from on high, from the Mount Calvary where they were coming from, Governor Holcomb with his mandates, the CDC with their mandates, in Cedar Lake we kind of ignored all of them. The town hall didn't close for a single day. Every public meeting was still a public meeting. The public was invited to show up. The council members were there in person. You could wear a mask, or you could decide not to. That was your choice. This stuff is pretty simple, right? There was nothing in law. One lady called me very upset, and she said, I'm going to turn you into the health department. And I said, ma'am, feel free to, but there's nothing in legal code that would allow any sort of legal action to be taken against me. These were mandates. They're unconstitutional. They have been from the start. I had COVID myself, had some pretty harsh symptoms, got through them. I know a lot of people that have had it, and I know people that have died of it. Horrible man-made illness, but nonetheless, there's not a single situation where I would trade freedom for safety.
Amen.
So President Brandon came out and told all of us that have more than 100 employees that we're going to have to mandate the vaccine. And so as a council president in Cedar Lake, that was kind of fun. Our town attorney called me. We have over 100 employees in Cedar Lake now. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, if I could draw a middle finger and put it up in a meeting, I guess I would probably do that. He said, well, what if we get fined? I said, we got a paper shredder in town hall. We can shred the fine. Because none of this was ever constitutional, folks. This whole idea that government can force you to take a medicine is ridiculous. So I know it's a little off the question of transgender, but this is really just kind of who I am. I tell young candidates, there's only 3 things you need to know to run for office. You got to care about something other than yourself. You have to know how to add and subtract. You can't spend $5.8 trillion with $3.8 trillion in revenue. It's going to create a problem. And then the third thing is you got to remember who you work for. Right? This is public service. And even myself as a business owner, I work for my customers. I work for my employees. You always do things for somebody else. Zig Ziglar, the great sales guru, used to say you can have whatever you want in life as long as you help other people get what they want. And it's the same in public service. Our founders created a perfect system of self-government. We need to stop serving special interest, which is something that is being done in this county by my opponent. And we need to start remembering the simple principles of government. Right? We don't need to overthink any of this. This is really simple. So I hope that I earn your trust and support if you live in the 7th District. If not, I hope you spread the word. You can visit my website, randyforlakecounty.com. I've been doing blog posts. I've got some more to put up soon. But it's just all about getting back to the simple foundations and the principles of self-government. So support good Republican candidates. Come out and vote in the primary. Your vote matters because when you select good conservative Republicans like Barb and like Jen to be on the ballot in November, you have an actual chance to change this culture of government being the answer to everything. And as Ronald Reagan said so famously, that government is not the answer to your problem. Government is the problem. So let's solve that problem, starting this way.
Thank you, Randy. All right, before we head out, I have a couple of things that I wanted to say. Thing number 1, today you need to register to vote if you haven't done it yet, because tomorrow at noon is your last shot if you want to vote in the primary. Now, that being said, take your phone out and do it now, because if you forget, you have forgotten, and there is no undoing that. So, yes, if you go on Randy's website, it's all set up on there. You're good to go. You will find register to vote. You can check to see if you're registered. You can actually register. You can get an absentee ballot, however you guys need to do that. That being said, probably not a good idea on an absentee ballot. Let's just do it in person. But it's all there if you need it. So, yes.
It takes 5 minutes.
Yes, it's only like a 5-minute thing, guys. It's really not complicated. You just need your driver's license. That's it. What's your question?
My son turns 18 April 24th.
I'm going to address this about, do you know the actual, okay, he knows the actual answer.
So my son turns 18 June 14th. He can vote in this primary as long as you're 18 before the registration cutoff for the general election. So if he gets registered, he can register right now. My son is already registered to vote. I registered him right after he turned 17. So yeah, get the young people registered, get them educated, make sure they vote Republican.
Today.
Yes, today is your last chance if you're going to vote in this primary. That being said, I have 2 more little points. Point number 1, If you have a problem with your current incumbent, and they are actually not, there's no one running against them, there is a way you can send a message in the primary. You can choose not to click that box. They're still going through to the general. So if we have, let's just say, because how much did you say was the total? What was the total that voted last time? Give.
4,600.
So about 4,600 voted last time. So let's just say we're going to go generous. We're going to double it. Oh, hold on.
So the 7th district has about 70,000 people. And out of that, it's a conservative district, so rough estimates, you know, if you're looking at voting age adults, maybe half of those, right? And out of that half, probably about 60% are Republicans. So if you just look at kind of raw numbers, maybe about 20,000 Republicans that could vote, and 4,600 showed up. You get the, Mitch Daniels said it very well, you get all the crummy government you vote for, or that you don't vote for.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important to Jessica's point. If you want Republicans like me, who are not afraid to stand against the wind, even though we're a minority party in Lake County, you have to register, you have to vote in the primaries. This is where the difference is made.
Yeah, so to my point, what I was getting at, if let's say we're going to be generous, let's say there's 8,000 people, we'll double the number this time around because most people are pretty fired up, right? So that being said, we're gonna go generous and say we have 8,000 people. Now, if your candidate who is in your district who doesn't have someone running against them, if they have 8,000 people showing up to the polls and only 4,000 people click that box for them, you are sending a pretty clear message to them.
Yep.
We don't like what you're doing. So that is one way. These people are still going to make it through to November, but you're also giving them a warning shot and telling them, you need to start talking to your constituency because they don't agree with you. So that is one way. They're going still through to November, so you're still going to have a chance to vote for a Republican candidate, but it will send a pretty strong message. Yeah, one more?
Sorry, Jessica's giving me ideas. I go to a lot of Republican events, and I recently went to an event of Senator Todd Young, and I asked him a question. It's a question I ask a lot of Republicans. So you hear all this nonsense about a red wave. I love the idea of a red wave and getting a majority back. What are we going to do when we get the wave? Right? Are we going to actually legislate? Are we going to apologize for being the winners?
Right?
Right? We need to stop as Republicans electing people who don't have the courage to follow through. That's the message Jessica is talking about, is make sure the candidates that even aren't opposed in a primary get the message. Act like a Republican when you're elected. Don't be afraid to be a conservative. And when we get this red wave and we take the White House back in 2024, and President Trump is again our president as the 47th president of the United States, that the Republican majority that is in place needs to be one with people with courage like Jennifer Ruth, who aren't afraid to legislate, who aren't afraid to follow through on what they said they would do. Because right now the Republicans in Washington, for the most part, are absolutely weak. And I look for people that are going to take the opportunity that's in front of us. And unlike during President Bush's tenure, where you had 6 years of a full Republican majority and a Republican president, and they got nothing done. And in 2 years under President Trump was the same thing, and they got nothing done. It's time for Republicans to start acting like winners.
All right, do you got anything you wanted to close us out with before I close us out?
No, I'll just interrupt you.
Yeah, you'll just interrupt me, it's okay.